We have a really important story to share with you. It broke over the weekend, and it involves Google and a dad.
Yes, so a dad in San Francisco. This is February 2021. If you know anything about San Francisco, this was like mid-lockdown. They were still in full-fledged, lockdown. So the dad, stay-at-home dad, has his son, and I guess his son's having some issues in a sensitive area, if you would, and a rash of some sort, some redness, some swelling breaking out. And now, of course,
Monkeypox.
It was not monkeypox. This is the pre-monkeypox era. So this child is really having some discomfort. You're, of course, not allowed to go outside for any reason. So they are doing a virtual doctor's visit.
Okay.
While they're doing this virtual doctor's visit, the doctor requests photos to understand what's going on. So
This is not going anywhere really dark with the doctor, is it?
No.
Okay, good. I'm just asking for the listener.
Right.
Because
Well, if you survived the monkeypox update, I think you already are here.
This one's a lot more tame.
Yeah, this is more tame. So he takes some photos to give to the doctor of his child's area.
Yes.
Sends the photos. The doctor recognizes what the rash is or what the issue is, sends antibiotics, gets it knocked out immediately. Everybody's happy.
Got it. So I just want to recap this story. It's during COVID lockdown. Dad's locked in the house. The doctor has these virtual visits. The doctor, a good guy, asks the father, a good guy, to take a picture of the sensitive areas of the son, who is a good guy, so the doctor can diagnose and give the right prescription.
Which he does, and it works, right? Everybody's
Good.
happy.
Right.
Apparently not. Not according to the people over at Google, who have an algorithm running over all of his photos that are in the cloud.
Oh.
And this photo that was apparently uploaded automatically to the cloud sets off some alerts that say this could be child porn. Now, of course...
But it's not child
It's
porn.
not child porn.
Now, was Google monitoring this guy because they suspected child porn?
No, this is an automated algorithm that's scanning the photos
of everyone.
Of every single person who uses Google Cloud.
Okay.
Now, you might say there's some utility to this, right? If it was child porn, it would probably be really good that this was alerted, and maybe some child could have been protected from some horrible incident.
So they should have reached out maybe to the doctor.
Right.
But the doctor could be he was on the receiving end, so to speak. So he
right. So. But what needs to happen here? The algorithm sets off these alarms, then it goes to a human, right? And a human would have to determine at some level. So this happens, apparently. It's egregious enough for the people at Google to alert the police and shut down his entire account, shutting down his access to his email, deleting all of his photos from the beginning of his child's life all the way through, deleting all of his documents.
Okay, now wait a minute. Hang on just a second. If you were trying to catch somebody who was in child porn, the last thing you would want to do is tip them off that the authorities are onto them.
Right?
Right. So Google they call the police, then they just delete everything.
At least from his access point.
Right.
So he cannot access any of his stuff. Now, of course, this means he can't access the photos to prove he's innocent. Because now he no longer has access to the photos that he took that were his.
What happened to the doctor's office that received the photos?
Well, nothing at this point.
Okay.
So this goes on. He goes to Google. He appeals it and says, look, my kid was sick. The doctor asked for these photos. I sent them. They reject his appeal. Then, months later, he gets a letter from the San Francisco Police Department. San Francisco Police Department has alerted him that they have begun an investigation and have looked at all of these photos. He gets in touch with them and explains to the San Francisco Police Department, hey, look, this is what was the situation. The police department sees all the evidence and agrees with him and says, okay, obviously no crime here. He did not commit a crime. This is not child porn. He was sending them to a doctor. So now you have the dad, you have the doctor, you have the police department all saying the same thing.
And the boy.
This is not a crime. There was no abuse here. Seems all appearances, all the evidence that we have, a good dad trying to help his son through a difficult moment in his life. The only standout here is Google. So now the story escalates to the New York Times. The Times comes in, documents all of this, has actually apparently looked at the photos now, and has also determined this is not child porn, right? So we're sure on this one, it seems. Every point
I think that
evidence.
People at the New York Times might be able to know what child porn looks like.
They may very well be able to do that.
Maybe experts on that.
He wanted to. So they've gone through all of this. The dad wanted to sue Google because he wanted they shut him out. They keep saying no. Now even with the word of the police department, they still said no. So he wanted to sue Google. He realized it was too expensive. He didn't have the money to do it. So he is just basically now in this constant state of trying to get them to change their mind. Even with all of this, the Times contacts Google and gets a comment on the record where they say, yeah, we're not reversing it. After all of this, the police department is on the record saying, we have a copy of all of his data, but on a jump drive.
Now
and they are saying they want to work with the dad to get him access to his own information back. But at this point, Google is still denying it.
Now, imagine when Google and the United States are in bed together more than they already are. Okay? Imagine the ESG aspect of this. Dad's put on a list by Google. Google shares information with the government shares information with the banks. Dad doesn't just lose all of his pictures, all of his contacts, and his Google phone. Dad would lose all phones. Dad would lose his banking. Dad would lose absolutely everything because he would be too much of a risk. And who do you go to? Who do you go to? The New York Times? Who do you go to say, hey, I need to get my name off of this list? It doesn't. Now, let me add one additional thing to this. I told you last week that the World Economic Forum has said that bullying and everything else online and disinformation, misinformation, malinformation is too big of a problem globally. So they are now pushing for high tech and governments to endorse a system that would look at your tweet or your whatever in question, and the algorithm would decide whether or not that is good or bad. If it's bad, it then makes a tree of everything that you do. So it goes back and it looks at who is influencing you. And if those people, it deletes you, then it goes to all of the people, contacts, all of the people in your social media realm, and it looks for anyone else that is spreading that information. And on each of those people, there's made a tree. And they lose their access. All the way down, look it up at the worldeconomicforum.com or org. Could you look it up? Which one is it? But look it up at the main page of the World Economic Forum. It was there at least last week, where they are talking about making a tree that would, 7 degrees from Kevin Bacon. If this happened to this guy, I guarantee you it's only a matter of time before they get my name and your name, because it trees out. And the World Economic Forum says that it's not enough to get the problem that is manifest itself on social media. They need to see where that idea originally came from, because they now need to silence ideas before they get into the bloodstream of the population. If that's not terrifying, especially coupled with this that is actually happening, and you have a chance of stopping this, but you won't have that chance to stop these kinds of things. Look at how hard it is to get your name off a no-fly list. You're on there by mistake. Look at how long it took people to get their names off of no-fly lists. You can't even find out from the government if you're on it or off it what the status is or why you're on it or off it.
Yeah. In fact, one of the things that came up in this investigation was that they said, well, we've also flagged a video from 6 months ago.
Yes.
And that we thought that was problematic too. And he's like, well, what video? They're like, well, we're not going to give you access to it. So he can't even defend the video that he supposedly had on his phone.
You have a right to face your accuser, but that's only in governmental law.